I trust you are all confirming for yourself that you have all that you need, including that you can hear me okay? Loud enough? Okay. As mentioned on the first day, the first Dharma talk, the importance of being humble, having humility, and being honest and sincere. And the last few days, you have also seen the importance of patience, being patient. These are fundamentals of a practice. Proper guidance is also very helpful, but the basic work must be done by each one of us to, in a word, confirm it in our bones. Have you confirmed? What is a hindrance, an obstacle, an obstruction? What gets in the way of practice? I trust you are coming to see that the only real hindrance for our practice is our own confused mind, our own deluded views, our own personal preferences. It's not COVID-19. It's not the weather. It's not even the pain in the legs or the wandering mind. The only real obstacle or hindrance, what opposes us, is our own confused mind. Thus, the importance of proper practice, to untangle, to undo that mess, so that we can confirm in our bones what this is. I trust you have seen for yourself what it is to gather the energy that you have all into one. Of course, sometimes it scatters, but as the days go on and the practice becomes settled and deepens, it is as if all that energy that is dispersed starts naturally to gather all into one. And then just to continue, not even going inside in the ordinary sense, into a world of internal thoughts and ideas and memories. No, not going outside to the external senses, seeing and hearing, but not in the ordinary sense going inside in our mind either, rather right here, where there is no division between inner and outer. Right here, right here. And to allow the energy that you have just to gather all into one. You do have all you need. You have enough energy if it's not dispersed, bringing it all naturally into one. The breath itself is a great aid here. The body sitting in the proper posture is a great aid, a great help here. Certainly the mental attitude, the patience the humility, the honesty, just to bring it back right here, patiently, calmly, and clearly. Not turning our concentration from one thing to another thing, but rather allowing the concentration to fall right here, in a sense, on itself, on the source, the ground, right here. It's not just a mental state. It's something much more fundamental than that, this concentration. It's not even, in the end, something that we nourish or deepen. It comes to be what is. It's not just a certain state of mind. I trust you have at least touched this at moments these last few days. The confused, wavering, split, divided mind, that mind, it can't help but manipulate and be manipulated. It can't help but contrive, create, produce, and be contrived, to deceive and to be deceived. The mind that is split cannot help but fall into this. But when we practice properly, it becomes clear. Reality, this has no need of manipulating or being manipulated. It is free of manipulation. It has no need to contrive, to concoct, to create some kind of a special state or some kind of an escape from something. There's no need for that. That mind itself has come to rest, been stilled. Thus, we can really see immediately, directly, what is here, what is in the palm of our hand, what is under our feet, underfoot. When we realize this, not just in our head, but with our whole body and mind, which is inseparable from the universe, with our whole body and mind to realize this, well, then you see what it is to walk freely through the universe, serving others, working together. I urge you, don't drop one set of chains, one set of delusions, and then pick up another. You don't need to do that. You don't need chains. Whether it's the danger of a deluded practice, the poison of incomplete practice, whether we are shackled with chains, shackled to our sitting, yes, we can even become attached to that, or whether we are confined by koans and by so-called kensho experiences, all of this can just become chains that shackle us, that bind us. Do not let go of one set of chains, delusions, just to pick up another set. You don't need to do that. You see? You are free. You don't need chains. And the chains finally are self-made. No one else is putting them on you. It is the self-delusion that is the delusion of a self. That's the only chains that are there, and they are not real. The only way to really know that is to confirm it in your bones. There are no chains here. In a word, the essential point of genuine Zen practice is to stop, to let the mind that is seeking, no matter how noble or virtuous the object of its seeking, that very seeking mind, to let it just come to rest. And then see what's there. What is this? What is this when mind does not concoct anything, create anything, manipulate it? What is this before the mind has manipulated it, turned it into something? What is this? It's all right there. It's all right there, but it can only be seen directly, immediately. Just another way of saying what is really underfoot, under our feet. If the practice is proper, if we are really giving ourselves to the practice, it takes some time, but these things become clear from the inside, through our own bones, not just in our head. Otherwise, you know what happens. The wavering mind may be sitting in perfect zazen, but it's trying to convince itself everything is okay when it's not. Well, this is just another delusion, however perfect the physical posture may be. Or using the zazen to seek some escape, some experience. All of this just comes down to failing to see what is underfoot, what is in the palm of our hand here and now. Because we don't clearly see that, we go running off, or we try to convince ourselves it's okay when it's not. See this clearly for yourself. When the mind comes naturally to its own end, it stops seeking. We see what is here. And then you don't go running off again. There is nothing you need to seek. There is nothing you need to escape from. I urge you to confirm this for yourself. When the self-delusion, that is, the delusion of a self, comes to its own end, see it through, see it through. This is where the practice must be thoroughgoing, not just a little glimpse here, a little insight there. That's not enough. The delusion can still continue on, now very, even more powerfully, because it thinks it has something. Be aware. When that self-delusion, that is the delusion of the self, comes to its own end, see it all the way through. What is there? What remains? Don't replace one set of delusions with another. even if they're Buddhistic or Zenistic. You don't need to replace one set of delusions with another. You don't need them. The very insecurity that spawns, that creates that need, when it is seen through. Yes, terms like our original face, our original face, naked and free. Yes, we don't need to conceal or hide anything. And we don't need to attain anything. The whole universe is at our feet, isn't it? Isn't it? The boundless, not just the universe of form seen through my eyes. This, the real, living, breathing, formless, boundless universe is at our feet. And you go running off looking for some experience or to perfect your zazen? Oh, yes. Zazen is something to nourish and develop and, in a sense, perfect. But in the end, what we come home to is simply what we have always been and always will be. In a profound sense, Zen practice is about coming to the actual fact, the point that there is nothing to attain. There is no need to attain anything. That very drive is found to be gone, gone. In my own poor way, this is the way I would express the essential points of Zen practice. Again, I want to leave plenty of time now for questions coming directly from out of the practice, not intellectual or conceptual, theoretical, speculative questions. We can talk about that later in an email if you'd like. But here, coming to the end of this retreat, what needs to be made clear in your practice here and now? Where are you stuck? Where can you be stuck? Make this clear, and it can be of benefit for yourself and for others as well. We often find that one person's question is virtually everyone's question. So it can be of benefit to raise the question from out of the practice. And then together we can find the way to proceed. In the end, you do have all that you need. Giving ourselves fully to the practice, that shows us the way we must go, doesn't it? When the practice is really there, you don't need to be told, reminded. You don't need to go back and read that chapter from the book again. Your practice, when you give all of yourself, it shows you all you need to know. Wake up and see it. You still have some time left in this retreat. I trust you will continue giving all of yourselves in this wonderful practice right up to the end. For now, I hand it over to Bernhard for anyone who has a question from out of the practice. Thank you for listening so intently.
Ja, thank you very much, Jeff. Vielen Dank, Jeff. So it worked very well 2 days ago, so please speak up and don't forget to unmute yourself. Stell dein Audio ein, wenn du eine Frage hast. Und wenn du was übersetzt haben möchtest, wenn du Probleme hast mit was, also wenn du es genauer hören willst, wenn du irgendwas nicht verstanden hast, was wichtig ist, bitte scheu dich nicht, die Frage zu stellen. Just saying, if there's some translation necessary, some clarification, what Jeff said. Ersetzt nicht eine Art von Ketten durch eine andere Art von Ketten. Das war die Hauptaussage. Okay, please speak up.
Jeff?
Yeah.
I'd like to go back to the beginning of your talk today. Yesterday, you mentioned humility about 20 times, and you began with it today. And I just wanted to ask you to say more about it, please. What does it look like? What does it feel like? And what are the dangers if you think you've got it and you haven't?
Excuse me, Humility heißt Demut und das Adjektiv dazu ist humble, demütig.
Thank you for your question, Maggie. When we give ourselves to the practice, we can have some very profound, illuminating experiences. And how to put it, if we are not really prepared for it, if we have not prepared the ground through patient practice, for example, through living a proper lifestyle, sometimes these experiences can cause us to be puffed up with great arrogance and pride. I myself was certainly guilty of that when I had this first experience rather early on, and I thought, wow, this is it. This is it. Hakuin, the great Rinzai, Japanese Rinzai Zen master who died a little over 250 years ago, Hakuin writes with great humor, looking back at his experience, where he speaks about being puffed up and saying, oh, no one in the last 300 years has had an awakening as deep as mine. Shouldering my great awakening, I went off. And of course, he was eventually thrown off a veranda and other things like that to help him with his humility. But if you really go through the practice, there is no place for arrogance or pride. The arrogance or the pride shows that something is lacking, something remains, doesn't it? So we need to humbly keep our eye open. If that bit of pride, even what we call spiritual pride, arises, we need to be able to see humbly what remains, what is missing, what am I missing? And I assure you, when you really come to the point of being without self, how to say it, there is no place for arrogance. It's virtually impossible. The separation between you and the other is gone. Do you see, Maggie? So how can I feel proud about myself? It's not possible. Where do I draw the line? That line is gone. But your question is very important, because on the way, when we have these experiences, oh boy, it can be a big problem. You know, this kind of spiritual arrogance. As I used to say, wow, now I'm the biggest no self around. So it's something to be aware of. And if you have a genuine guide, I assure you, they will cut you down when needed. But the best thing is to do it yourself, to see it yourself. That's why I Did you count? Was it really 15 times I said humility yesterday?
No, I didn't count.
Well, at any rate, it was probably too many, but for what it's worth, please take it to heart. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Maggie?
No, thank you. 15 wasn't too many. Thank you.
I think Ursula has her hand raised.
Yes, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Jeff, you always say in your lecture to give all myself to the practice, but I always I didn't know how I can give it. I sit and sit, but I don't know how I can do this, to give all myself to the practice.
Mm.
That's my question.
Mm. You were very inspired as kind of a Christian Zen Buddhist.
Mm.
For example, with the expression, "Thy will be done."
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
And that, I believe, was a deep inspiration for you.
Yeah.
Thy, not my will, but thy, thou, the other. Especially, of course, God, in the Christian context. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Do you see what that really means, Ursula?
Yeah.
If you do, then you know what it is to give all of yourself.
Yes, I understand, but when I hear your lecture, I get I am a little bit embarrassed, and I don't know. Make I all do I all the right? But what I can do is only to sit.
Mm.
And then how can I give myself to the practice? Perhaps
All I would say
yes.
is, first of all, what you're saying now is a good illustration, an example of humility, But all I would say is simply give yourself out of love. Simply give yourself so that there is no room for that kind of question to arise.
The question
You know at times, there is no room for that question to arise.
Yes. I know
So when
it.
you see it arise, yes, okay. Thank you. A little reminder to be humble, and now.
What I do.
Enough said.
Okay, thank you.
You don't need some kind of formal perfection, to reach some kind of 100% on the scale. When you give all of yourself, there is no measure. Compared to what, Ursula? If you take my words in the wrong way, maybe you compare them with that. But that's not what my words are meant for. Just let my words illuminate for you. That's all. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Jeff. In your talks, when you talk about enlightenment experience,
I never used that term.
It sounds like a spontaneous.
Wait a minute, I never used that term.
Yes, but well.
You mean awakening?
Yes, awakening. Yeah, it sounds like a very fast happening, spontaneous thing or experience, and well, for me, well, doing the practice, it's more a little steps, I would say, and you mentioned already the patience that is necessary, right? So it doesn't feel like boom, like next thing happening, so on. And still, I feel like I made progress, if you can call it that way. So yeah, I was maybe now stepping into this tension or pain inside myself. I move into this pain body, it opens, but now it's here. I'm with it, right? I think that's good, but it's not like boom, next thing or so. Is it still the right thing or not? You know, I'd compare.
Yeah, I would just say don't turn it into a thing at all. You don't need to compare it to anything. But I gave you a hard time about the term enlightenment because I only use that word when I'm using it ironically, you know, some kind of an enlightenment experience, which is obviously not the real thing. But these steps that you talk about, often it's said in Zen, there are no steps in Zen. There are no, you know, they pull away that luxury, you know, give me 7 steps, 10 steps, then I can take and I can get there. For a very obvious reason, I trust you see why Zen tends not to do that. And yet, as our actual practice goes, we do find ourselves at certain places. Take, for example, you know, Adrian, the 10 ox herding pictures. You're familiar with this, right? And in a way, what they are doing is artificially showing as if there are these 10 different steps. Of course, everyone doesn't go through that, but they are helpful hints, signposts along the way so that you can see, oh, yes, oh, yeah, now I see what that means. But it's also clear that this is not the final stage. I need to continue on. So one step, and you see what's underfoot. You can see what's underfoot. Do you know what I mean? Only the first step. Well, done right. That's enough. That's enough. Done properly. That first step, oh, you're there. So it's not a matter of, you know, counting off so many steps or so many koans or so many problems that we create. Practically speaking, yes, it can be helpful to see, in a sense, where you are, perhaps where you are stuck, and what lies ahead to help you in your practice. But don't make those out as anything more than that. They're illustrations. They can be helpful signposts. But to be really radical, before you've taken that first step, Adrian, you can arrive. In a sense, that's the only way you can arrive. You can't get there through some kind of a process. In a sense, that's what the process is, to eventually see that very attempt is what keeps the delusion going. You follow? As I mentioned the other day, right? Seeking itself is going astray. Finally, that is true. And it's so true that it doesn't mean you don't have to practice. It means, doesn't it, Ursula, that you give all of yourself. How can you not? Forget the steps, the stages. How far am I? Compared to what? Just give all of yourself, Adrian.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Jeff.
Filter.
I wonder about not manipulating. I kind of know, but if you bring yourself back, try to relax, keep the attention at your breathing and making sure, yeah, I tense up a lot, so making sure I stay relaxed. And that also feels like I'm busy doing stuff and manipulating, but I also can let my habitual mind wander off, or my body shoot into a cramp or a knee-jerk reaction. So I have to deal with myself. So where
Yeah, it's a good question. In the beginning, you're right. We need to manipulate. Otherwise, we wouldn't begin practicing in the first place. Yes, yes. If you simply follow your inclinations, your momentary desires, you will never be able to begin practice. It's true. And yes, you're right. In a sense, that's a kind of manipulation, artificially going in there and changing the attitude, for example, the physical posture. Yes, all of that, in a sense, is manipulation. But that in itself won't do. The point is, when you manipulate it properly, it undoes itself. You know what I mean, huh? As the practice becomes settled and stable and natural, it comes to be the way that we are. It is not something that we manipulate anymore. But in the beginning, yes, for the untrained mind, yes, yes, discipline. If you want to use the word, yes, manipulation is necessary, yes. But that is not where we are headed. When the practice is proper, it becomes completely effortless. We are giving all of ourselves, Ursula, without effort. That's how complete it is. If you're still using your effort, it's not enough. It's not all of yourself, is it? So to get to that point where it is truly effortless, not because you're not doing anything, but because the whole universe is doing it with you, as you. There is no opposing position. But that takes some time. So yes, in a good, healthy way, don't be afraid to manipulate. When you see yourself sitting like this, manipulate. Correct yourself. When you find your mind wandering off, okay, yeah, manipulate, bring it back. But as you do that properly, you start to see this does not need to be manipulated.
Yeah, and then you sit there, and then it's more like allowing it to happen, or yeah, I don't know how to say, and not walking away from it again. Yeah, so then to keep yourself there, but without strain. Yeah, it's still difficult to find the right balance. Yeah, so
continue on and find it. Huh? It does take discipline, but the end result is you find this is the way it is. You don't have to manipulate at all. There's nothing to manipulate. But yes, as long as you find that mind fluctuating, wavering, then bring it back patiently, humbly, until there's nothing to come back to.
Jeff.
Yes. Cyrus.
Could you say something more about, as I'm sitting and I'm giving myself, I don't want to get wise, but when, Dogen talks about this confirms, in my understanding, this confirms. So I'm like, well, this is all awake and I'm deluded. But as I give myself, this seems to confirm me. Could you say something more about that?
Yeah, there are expressions in Zen, for example, to bring yourself forth in the practice is deluded, but for the world itself, for things themselves to confirm you is the way. But that's still half-assed. That very distinction has got to be undone. That's what Dogen means when he talks about body and mind. The body and mind of self and others falls away, and this continues on without end. That's finally where we're headed with Dogen, if you want to put it in his words. But who makes that distinction, Cyrus?
I do. This self. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question. So I'm sitting and some unpleasant or painful memory comes up. Now, I know about the idea to just let go, but you also say something, look deeply. So this morning I had the feeling that this unpleasant memory came up, and I thought maybe it needs some kind of acknowledgement of to be recognized, not just let go, but it may need a little bit more, and not going into, but a little recognizing. Yeah. So yeah, how should that be done? And yeah, that would be my question.
All of us have things like that in our collective karma, so to speak, in our past. We all have difficulties, if not traumas and things from our childhood. I think no one is completely free of that. And if we're sitting properly and really open, sometimes those memories come up. We need to be able to discern, to clearly see whether this is just a wandering thought, in which case we can just let it go. Or is there something deeper there, something that, as you say, maybe needs to be acknowledged and looked at? If it keeps coming up, how was your lunch yesterday? This is probably not something that you need to go back and give too much care to. But if there's something from, it could be your childhood or yesterday, but something that really brings up deep emotions, for example. Yes, we don't want to, push them away. They're nothing. No. This may be valuable nourishment. We're not here for that. This isn't, psychodrama or psychological counseling. And that is a valuable thing that maybe should be done. But that's not the main purpose of Zen practice. But as a matter of fact, often those things, if we're practicing properly, we give them room and they surface, they come up. Then to see, is this something I need to look at? I remember myself when I was younger, pushing it away, because I'm going for the Big Lebowski, or mess with that stuff, right? But after some years, I realized this isn't happening. This isn't working. Maybe I have to really look at that stuff. And that was a very important point in my practice, because I realized that was what was splitting me. Some of those experiences that we've gone through, deeply shameful or serious mistakes we have made in our life, sometimes we need to look at them, acknowledge them, maybe even do something about them. Write a letter of apology or accept an apology finally from someone else, or do something for the children of that person who is now gone. You know what I mean? There may be something that needs to be done to right a wrong. Yes. But in the practice, we simply let it come up. And if you let it rise all the way, from my experience, if you let it come all the way, sometimes it can seem unbearable. But if you let it come all the way without judging, condemning, criticizing, just let it come, then you can let it go, and it doesn't come back. But there may be something that needs to be done as well. You know what I mean? You realize, I need to talk to that person. I need to work something out here, yes. Again, that's not the point of the practice, but it is a precious perk that sometimes happens. So once you see this is something that needs to be acknowledged, yes, open yourself up to it. See, what can you learn from it in all humility? What is it trying to tell me, to teach me? How can I benefit from this? And then, once it really comes, I find you can really let it go. It doesn't stay there, under the surface, just waiting for another chance to appear again. To really let it come, acknowledge it fully, and then let it go. Does that help, Bernhard?
Yes, certainly. Thank you. So I'm
I
sure.
have one question.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
I have a question. I had the experience after retreat to when I came back into daily life that it completely overwhelmed me. That a felt calmness was just swiped away by something, by a person or something that happened, and yeah, I even collapsed pretty badly. That happened, and I wonder, am I doing something completely wrong during the retreat?
You said your calmness collapsed.
Yeah.
Was that real calmness?
Yeah, probably not.
Take a look. Take a look. Are you holding on to something that's not real? And then when it's swiped away, you get trouble? If it's real calmness, it cannot be swiped away, can it?
Yeah, it just feels like after a retreat, I'm more easily hurt, or I'm very sensible.
Sensitive.
Sensitive,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, well, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but we do need to have to be settled enough to take that, because yes, it's true, in a way, we can become very sensitized or sensitive. For example, the pain of another, it's not separate from you, is it? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
If the confusion or chaos in the person that you are with, it's not separate from you. It's not separate from you. That
Yes.
separation that the ego self makes, it starts to dissolve in a very good way, but we need to be able to respond appropriately.
Yes, that's one thing, and
Yeah.
just feels too much sometimes.
Yeah. Well, take your time and be careful with it. See what you are doing. Are you holding on to a certain state, for example, that you developed in this retreat, and then as it starts to fade away, it can become frustrating, or when someone says or does something that kind of confronts that. This is a really precious teacher, isn't it? It's showing you that something is missing in the practice. It's clear, huh? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. So don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of it. See what it has to say. See what you can learn from it. And don't hold on to, some state that you acquired in the retreat. That's not what it's about. Huh?
No, I think that's also not what I meant. It feels like the retreat makes me fragile, in a sense.
All I would say is become really, really fragile.
Isn't there a danger also to that?
If the practice is proper, I wouldn't worry about it. I often see martial arts people here in Japan, and they want to come and do Zen meditation. And you can see it in the way they sit, the way they hold themselves. They're trying to become invincible. Do you know what I mean? The opposite of fragile. Nothing can break them. Whoever comes at them in their martial art, they cannot be defeated. You understand? They're using the Zazen to become undefeatable. They cannot be defeated. You understand?
Yes.
And it occurred to me in showing these people how to do Zazen that instead of trying to be invulnerable, there's no place that the opponent can strike. This is important in martial arts, but to be invulnerable. You understand? Rather than vulnerable, invulnerable, no place, no weakness, no place that you can strike. What they really need to learn is to become completely vulnerable. There's no place to strike. You're completely vulnerable. When you're ready, you will see. This is not a weakness. Do you follow?
Yes.
But take your time with it. Take your time with it. And when you're ready, you see. To be completely vulnerable, then we can really be of service to others. As Meister Eckhart, since we were speaking of Christianity, put it, as long as we have a place within ourselves where God can enter, we are not truly poor of spirit. We are not truly poor, and he means it, of course, in a good way, without a thing. If there's still a place where we can be hurt, our practice is lacking. But take your time with it, okay? Do you want to say anything else?
No. Thank you.
So let's just sit quietly for a few moments.